Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
November is Financial Literacy Month, and most of us could probably use some additional education in this space. Maybe you have no time, it's too hard, or it's too complicated, or it's intimidating, or maybe you think it doesn't apply to you because you don't have much money. Think again. Financial literacy is an important life skill on many levels, and the sooner you get started, the better. I'm Kris McCusker, and in this episode of The Big Story, we speak to Gary Teelucksingh, co-founder of the MoneyWise Institute and partner at Electric Mind. He is also the author of Roots of Prosperity, Building Legacies Beyond Wealth. Thanks for doing this, Gary, and welcome to The Big Story.
It's my pleasure to join you. Thanks so much for having me.
First, I want you to tell me about the book.
You mean The Labor of Love?
Yes.
I've spent, like many of us, decades thinking about what legacy would be important, and what are the lessons that I want my family, my children to learn, and what have I learned from my parents, and what reverence do I have for that. And so all of this is wrapped up, Kris, into legacy. And so in the end, I've been telling friends and colleagues these stories that I think are amazing and wonderful. And finally, a friend of mine said to me, Kelly said, "You should write this book." I said, I don't know about that. And so we went back and forth. And in the end, others around me said, you know what, this story needs to come out. And it's really, we've spent years talking about financial plans, all of us, talking about intergenerational wealth transfer, but we haven't spent the time talking about the family plan. So financial plan is really guided by family plan. Family plan is really guided by the strength of the conversations that we're capable of and willing to have. So, Kris, that was the genesis of the book, really just helping people have the courage, insight, and knowledge to have the conversations they need to have to keep and make their families strong and have reverence for those that sacrificed before them.
Okay, so with that as the theme, I guess my next question was going to be, what's your target audience? But I guess the answer is everyone.
So it was interesting when I was first asked that question, because I thought I absolutely knew the answer. And I would say to you, since the book's come out, I've had people come to me and say, quite lovely things, but they're from all different walks of life and all different age groups. And so you could be the in-between sandwich generation parent thinking, how do I deal with elder care and what do my parents need and want? And then how do I impart, what do I do for my children? You could be the children being confused or possibly, not having guidance in the wilderness about where do I go from here from a financial perspective. You could be the parents' thinking about what legacy they leave. And so in some ways, there are elements of this for all three of those groups. The lessons are common to all. The learnings are common to all. The values are common to all. The lens would be unique to each.
I think it's probably safe to say, and you would probably agree, if everyone can improve on their financial literacy, and some might be held back because it's intimidating or overwhelming. Is that fair?
Yes, I think it's exactly what you said, and all overwhelming because of the amount of information and clutter that's there. Yes.
But there's also a risk in not educating yourself.
100%. Education is valuable to us in all aspects of our lives, right? Financial literacy, financial education is important. And facts are just facts. They don't necessarily land with any of us until we personalize them. So the real trick, the real secret for all of us isn't to read the facts. We can read them. We get almost bombarded with the facts. It's how do I reach in and say, which of those facts are relevant to me and how are they relevant to me? And I think, with social media and influencers and media and books and everything out there, it's overload. And so hopefully what I'm trying to do in the book, and many of others like you and others are trying to do, is give people simplification and context and focus.
Because there is sort of a financial lingo that's out there that, I mean, me working in finance, I had to familiarize myself with some of the terms. But that can be off-putting for people who maybe don't have a reason to explore that. Like, they don't have a good enough reason to explore what these things mean. I did because it pertained to my job. And, to extrapolate that, I would say that when it pertains to your finances, it is important, but that can also be off-putting, and that might prevent some from learning more.
So you're very intuitive and you speak truth. The inner voice is what you're speaking, right? You're speaking the inner voice of, I don't feel confident in this. I don't want to be ashamed. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to talk to someone and feel dumb. But I think many of us miss the essence. And people will always say, no question is a stupid question. No question is a dumb question. Well, we might feel like it is, but it isn't. And the lens here isn't, do I know the right question to ask? Do I know this? Do I know that? Did someone know more than me? I'm the only me in this world. And so you need to know what the things are that are important to you. You don't need to know the terminology. You're a professional, Kris. Of course, it matters to you, right? You're probably one of the people who can interpret for others. But everyone has the opportunity to have an interpreter, right? They're called financial advisors, and they exist all over the world, right? All over the country. And so what you need to do is have the kind of individual in your corner who can be your linguist, your translator, your, interpreter, because that's not what you're going to be good at. What you're going to be good at is, what values are important to me? What are my goals? What am I trying to achieve? What makes me nervous? Where's my risk? What do I want for my children? You're an expert. We're all experts at that. The right interpreter, meaning the right advisor or people around us, they will do the interpreting for us. We don't need to be perfectly knowledgeable in all of those things.
I think if I oversimplify what you just said there, help is available. You don't need to, take a master class in all the terms and technology. You can find someone who already knows that stuff.
Yeah, and I think the bridge between the two things is trust. Find someone you trust, because if you trust, then you can let your shoulders down, relax a little bit, and say, I'll tell you what I need or tell you what I want, and trust that you'll interpret that properly.
Is that sort of where it starts, do you think? Is it reaching out for help if you're someone who wants to break through, some of the lingo that could be intimidating? Is it reaching out for help first? Is that the first step towards better financial literacy, in your opinion?
I think there are a few first steps you could take. They aren't necessarily sequential. If your family, or if you have readily access to someone who you trust or and want to get to trust, you should avail yourself of that. It could be a financial advice comes in many forms: lawyers, accountants, actual financial planners, right? So you could seek that out. Some people feel guilty because they're like, oh, I don't have a lot of money. I don't know if I have much to talk about. The other thing you can also do is look for role models, right? People in your network or people that you know, and just coffee chat, have a conversation, right? What are the things, I should be thinking about? These are people you kind of already trust, but you're not necessarily taking exact financial advice, but it's learning. Oh, that's important. Okay, that's important. And everything is also available to us in different online forms and we can then do a bit of our own learning. It could be a GPT interaction. It could be, right, a web search. It could be, your favorite blog or online forum. But, you're triangulating these things, right? You're someone you're building trust with, information you're willing to go corroborate that with, and potentially those that are in your network who you can have coffee chats with to learn what works for them.
Mm-hmm. I just as you were outlining that, I was thinking about the movie The Big Short, where every now and then they had like a cutaway scene to sort of explain what some of the terms meant. Like some of the cutaways were like, oh, and if you don't know what this means, here's what it is. Like it felt like a conversation to the everyman. And that's probably part of the reason the movie had as much of an appeal as it did. It was an interesting story already, but then it, like, you almost learned something watching that movie as well.
Absolutely. Welcome to the life that, it's a very interesting thing that you brought up, because, we're all watching the storyline of the movie, call that our life, but we bump into things we don't necessarily know. The cutaway is oh, what does that mean to me? Because what they really did, and you really picked up on it, was they said, what does that mean to you? And then they told you, and you went, oh, okay, I'm a bit smarter now, back into the story, right? Back into
Yeah.
That's kind of what happened. I hadn't thought about it the way you said it, or hadn't thought about it that way until you said it. But yes, that's kind of how it felt.
Okay, so a lot of this stuff can be done, the educating part can be done without anyone knowing, as you've sort of alluded to as well. The cutaways can be a search and some research and a definition. And sometimes you get the definition and it still doesn't make sense. So then you go down a rabbit hole to find out what ROI is or whatever. All of this stuff can be done if there's any kind of, embarrassment or worry that, people might wonder why you don't know these terms. There's a way to do it without anyone knowing that you're checking out what these terms mean.
Absolutely. And what's interesting in families is someone has to lead the way. A lot of what I cover in the book, and that in the MoneyWise Institute we covered in our research as well, is that most families aren't having the conversations. And there could be many reasons why. Like, more than half of Canadian families haven't had the money conversation. And the money conversation being, here's where we're at, here's where we're going, or here's what you could expect as an inheritance, or here are the goals and values that I have that I would like to be carried on. People aren't having the conversation. And so then, Kris, what we just talked about, which is, how do I get started? Well, it's, how do I get started? Someone has to start. And it doesn't have to be top of the chain, right down to the sibling, or down to your children, to your children's children. It can be them going up. They can ask very intelligent questions, right? And the questions aren't about, I'm smarter than you. The questions are, well, have we thought about, or, what if I inherited some money, right? What would you like me to do with it? What would you like to see happen? Or how would you like me to, take care of it? Or, are there things that you're most proud of that you want me to carry forward, right? When you had grandchildren or great grandchildren, what would you like them to know about you? These aren't money exact questions, but they foster the need to learn about money or discipline or values. So, yeah, I think you hit on that nugget.
And your book sort of stresses this point, right? It's not debt or interest rates that are, potentially the problems in the road ahead. It's not having that conversation that could be the problem.
We did some as part of the lead up to the book, and also, for other purposes, we did some research, and it was called Age of Broken Conversations. And it was an apt title because in the age of all of this information and all of the talking, right, the conversations that are essential are the things that aren't happening. And we prove that, right? I mean, empirically, right, prove that. And then if you talk to folks like yourself who are in the industry broadly, they would say, oh, we've been talking about money, intergenerational wealth and financial planning and money planning and tax for 20 plus years. But then they would say, which they did say to me, but we haven't actually spent the time having the family conversations, preparedness, values based. And so that is really, Kris, where the book focuses, is so that people will see, and through stories, right? Engaging stories, not lessons that, you read like you were in school. Stories. Someone will tell you their beautiful story about what they experienced and then what they learned and then what they did. And I would say it would be hard pressed for someone to read the book and not find one or two things where they said, oh my, that's so applicable to my ex, right? Person, ex, dad, mom, grandpa, son, daughter, right? Brother. It's been quite touching and quite remarkable, actually.
I can imagine. You're also never too young to learn about this stuff. That's one lesson I take too.
We are eternal students, right? It's one of the riches that we have is the ability to always learn. And so society's changing so quickly, technology and all of these other things are changing, right? We're going to be constant learners, and literacy and financial literacy is going to be part of that journey.
I guess I'm looking for a way to make all of this less intimidating or less scary to people who want to learn. And I think we've sort of hit the highlights around what the book is getting at. But what is your message on this as far as financial literacy goes?
The bridge to financial literacy is steps. You have to take steps. And if you think that the bridge from where you are to where you want to be in terms of knowing everything you think you need to know, if you think that bridge is a bridge too far, you're wrong. It's a series of very small, manageable, bite-sized steps that you can take. And everything you learn, you keep. No one keeps it. It's yours. You keep it. You learned it. You understand it. You made it your own. You personalized it to you and your family. And that's your building block. So, my message to everyone is, right, take the small building blocks, right, and do it as a process. Don't make it daunting. Find someone, ideally, who can give you advice that you either do trust or can become trusting of. Be a learner, right? We are eternal learners. Learn. Find the things that are important that you may have found from your trusted advisor, or you may have gotten from a colleague in a conversation you've had, and become a learner. And so you can do that work on your own and make this an iterative thing, because every time you pick up a piece of information, it's not knowledge, it's information. In order to make it knowledge, you have to personalize it to you. No one can do that. People can help you. But I can tell you, here's a good piece of financial advice. And you'd say, Kris, you'd say, oh, that's really interesting. It's not knowledge until you say, my dad would, I understand, what? That would really matter, right? My dad's not doing this, or my parents didn't do that. Or it's when you bring it home, literally and figuratively home, then I think you are really achieving financial literacy. And so for that reason, I go back to, it's only small steps, right? And the information will always be there. The other thing is this, investing and planning and family planning, it's not running away from you. It's not a fad. It's not viral. It's not going to sneak past you and you can't catch up. There is none of that. It is methodical. It is careful. It's personal. And you can start it anytime, and you're never late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like the idea of, personalizing concepts to make them real. I guess that's kind of what you outlined. It's a way of taking an idea and putting it into your life.
And if I may, it was very interesting how the name of the book came up. Because, you come up with an idea for a book, but you don't come up with an idea for a name for the book. And then someone says to you, what are you going to call the book? And you say, I don't know. And so they actually interview you, and you're like, okay. And usually what happens, which happened to me, is you say something and it sticks. And so roots of prosperity. So back to what you asked before, the root starts somewhere. You could look and say, I'm late, or you could say, I'm early because 2 generations from now, I started it, right? So roots of prosperity is really about planting those roots. It can be based in literacy, financial literacy. It can be based in values, based in discipline, but someone has to start. So it can be any of your audience, any of us, any day, right? Roots begin the day that you plant them.
Awesome. Title means a lot more now that you've told that story.
I got to tell you, when they interviewed me just to ask the questions, and I said, well, it's all about family roots and it's all about this. And they said, well, and it actually just came about. It's the roots, right? The rooting of prosperity, roots of prosperity.
Makes sense. Thank you so much for doing this today. A real treat to talk to you. And some really interesting and helpful advice in there. So thanks, Gary.
Thank you so much, and such a pleasure.
That's Gary Teelucksingh, the author of Roots of Prosperity, Building Legacies Beyond Wealth. And that wraps up this episode of The Big Story. You can find us on the Seeker app or wherever you get your podcasts. Please like, review, follow, and share. I'm Kris McCusker. Thanks for listening.